on the plane on the way to the United States for Real Talk's first series over there in the US. Now our team here are working very closely with the MTA team over there in the United States, and we're eager to film a series of programs of Real Talk, so make sure you stay with us over the next few weeks. Welcome to the US edition of Real Talk.
So we're here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
What do you think about this show, man? Real Talk is here.
Oh, Real Talk is real issues.
This is a special edition of Real Talk USA.
What's going on, dude?
Welcome to USA. Hopefully you can see DC.
When we first started the program, we wanted it to be quite an open, relaxed debate and discussion, particularly for youngsters, and I think that's what we've achieved with this program. We were looking for that next step to find out where we can take Real Talk to the next level, really. So in that respect, Umar, who is the producer of the program, worked alongside Azarneev Saab, and he worked alongside the team in America to actually work out, you know, if this was actually practical, if we could actually take the program to a different location, because it's the first time we've done it. When we went there, when we started setting up for the program, when we started doing the program as well, one thing we found is, you know, their guys, mashallah, are very, very talented in the work that we do here for MTA International here in London as well. So that helped us, you know, a huge amount, because we were able to gel together straight away as a team and actually work on this common task. The programs that we discussed, the topics that we discussed, were all given that sort of American flavor. It was given that sort of American viewpoint, whether it's the panelists, whether it was the audience, the word on the streets where we went out and actually, you know, discussed these topics with just everyday citizens. We went out there, spoke to them, found out what their points of view were as well.
Turning now to the American diet. You know, that's a big problem in the U.S.
Demetrius, you play football and basketball here, right?
We were based in Washington, but just filming in one location, one hall inside the masjid, you can't really get a full feel of the whole area. So we went out into Washington, D.C., we went to Philadelphia, we went to New York as well to film outside, and so that you can get a whole real glimpse of what life is like there. We're here in Washington. I'm sure you can tell by the White House right behind me. Now today we're in New York. This, of course, is Times Square here in Manhattan. The best thing about going to America was actually meeting the people there. I haven't had a chance to travel much. I've been based in London for most of the time, and you see the same sort of faces. And when we went to America, straight away, you know, you get to meet people from a different background.
Oh my God. I'm doing fine, alhamdulillah.
My name is Harun Rashid, and I'm going to give you an introduction on my journey to Islam and Ahmadiyya.
We often hear a lot about Urdu poetry and Mashairas, but there's people out there who are writing these poems in English and expressing their points of view through that. And to see them do that, to see them perform, to see them express themselves through that poetry was really inspirational.
You telling me the prayers of those people, those among our people, weren't accepted? Do you really want to monopolize salvation? I am a man like on a picket sign, but I'm not trying to picket this time. Through the thicket of the wilderness, we all search to find peace of mind. I happen to find mine through Islam.
It's actually MTA, which is connecting people from all over the world to Khilafat and to the center of the Jamaat. So in that respect, as an MTA worker and actually going there and seeing how MTA affects people's lives there, that was really inspirational.
This show is like a prayer answer, because I love this show. Like when I found out that this was a show, Real Talk, like it was something I've always wanted to see on MTA. And something for people to relate to. So I'm really happy that this show.
We had a number of different people actually presenting the program as well, and they were able to give it that American touch, probably because I didn't understand my British accent very well over there. So we thought, let's get the American guys involved, get them presenting the program. When we started filming, when we started setting up the equipment, when we got everyone together, as soon as the lights go on, the cameras go on, you know, that's when that real excitement comes through.
I hope you enjoyed it. We made it.
Power hug.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a safe stuff.
You gotta come down to their level and bring them up to yours. You can't be at your level and not even talk. And we're gonna put the YouTubes out there and make them viral. Which one's gonna win? Vote for your favorite.
I'm sure that people all over the world will be able to take some benefit from the program, and I hope it'll get them discussing these issues and take it further. And so, you know, I'm really excited about it, and I'm sure everyone's going to be really looking forward to the brand new series of Real Talk in the USA.
So we're coming to you with real stories, real issues,
and real views from here in the USA.
Real Stories.
Urban life in America is very diverse, fast-paced.
You telling me the prayers of those people, those among our people, weren't accepted? Do you really want to monopolize salvation?
This is Real Talk USA.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another edition of Real Talk. We're here in the USA continuing this series, and from the start, firstly I'd like to apologize, I'm not feeling too great, you might be able to tell, but as they say in television, the show must go on. Today we've got a fantastic program, and we're going to be looking at new converts, and we're going to be speaking to a few of the new converts that we have in the Jamaat. The Jamaat is really propagating its message, and it's reaching out to a lot of people, and we're going to be discussing that whole issue. Throughout the whole series, here in the US, I'd like to thank all the people so far who've been helping behind the scenes. Let's move on straight to our panel. First of all, I'm joined by Ahmed Nuruddin Saab. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Real Talk. Fantastic to have you here today. Ahmed Saab is the Vice President of the Philadelphia Jamaat and also a counselor in the local school system. Yes. Next, I'm joined by a familiar face to everyone at home. Azhar Hanif Saab is the Naib Amir for Jamaat Ahmadiyya USA. Assalamu alaikum, Azhar Saab. Welcome to the show. And finally, last but not least, I'm joined by Rafiq Ahmed Saab. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Real Talk. Rafiq Saab is a judicial officer in Philadelphia as well. So that's our panel members, and as usual, we're joined by a studio audience as well, who are going to put forward their points of view throughout the discussion. We're going to go to our word on the street. Normally, we actually get the views of people, general public, about our topic, but obviously we're talking about new converts. So let's take a listen to the word on the street.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Harun Rashid, and I'm going to give you an introduction on my journey to Islam and Ahmadiyya. I was born here in Philadelphia. I was born in this house in 1966. I grew up in Southwest Philadelphia by the airport, and my father sent me to Catholic school. The Catholic school was majority white. I think it was about 95% white. I was the only, or maybe one or two Afro-Americans in my class. I didn't fit in with the whites because, of course, I wasn't white. And then when I went back to my black communities, I didn't fit in because I acted and spoke proper. So I just never fit in. So when after high school, bouncing around, wondering why God, I went through some ups and downs, and then I started talking to people about religion. I just started learning about Christianity more. I started reading the Bible more. Long story short, I started reading different literature. I started going to different stores, getting different religious books, and I ended up reading, wanting to learn to read the Arabic. I went into a bookstore on 52nd Street. There was a sister there who told me that I could go to this mosque in Logan section of Philadelphia. She never told me the name of the mosque. So I called the mosque, and I was introduced to a missionary there, which is Azhar Hanif, and I started learning to read the Arabic. And some time went by, and the brothers were talking about different things, about the Messiah and different things. And I was familiar with them things because of my Catholic school teaching. I was familiar with the Messiah and his second event, and that he would come in a thief in the night and all those different things. I was very familiar with that, so I wasn't shocked by what they were talking about. And then not long after that, 10 years later, I've been an Ahmadi. And then I brought my father in, and my father became Ahmadi, and then my wife became an Ahmadi, and some of my sons became Ahmadis. Learning the information about Ahmadiyya was a life awakening thing to me. Prophet Sai, peace be upon him, talked about the purpose of man. And I always wanted to know, why was I here? I've been asking that question since I was a little boy. What am I here for? Am I here to just play football, or run around dating, going to parties, having good times? What is my purpose? Because these things are not working out for me. These things are creating more hardship in my mind and in my heart. So after those first 3 years, it was like, now I know what I gotta do. I gotta go home, I gotta work, I gotta take care of my wife, I gotta take care of my kids, I gotta respect my parents, I gotta respect my relatives, and I gotta respect the people that I work with and deal with on an everyday basis. And Islam and Ahmadiyya did that for me. It made me a better person. It made me a better son. In this neighborhood, there's a lot of tore down houses, a lot of abandoned houses. People were doing, it's very quiet out here today, but it did, you know, this is the finished product. When I first came here, it was prostitution on this block. It was guys walking down the street toting guns on this block. It was guys selling drugs on this block because it's vacant, so they could set up anywhere they wanted to. It was a lot of cussing and fighting. The kids had basketball courts on the poles, and they were screaming and hollering and cussing till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, keeping the 3 neighbors here up. And we had to pave the way for that. And the reason I mention that is most of the time, I just prayed, and it seemed to go away. But Islam taught me, you know, to go out there and talk to people in a certain way where it don't escalate. Because before Islam and Ahmadiyya, you know, when I did my talking in a different way. But Islam said, no, you can't do that. So Islam gave me this code of conduct that solved the problem in a peaceful way.
That was the word on the street, and I want to get the discussion started off here in the studio. Azhar Hanif Sahib, if I could turn to you first. You know, there's a very famous hadith that the sun shall rise from the west. Is that something that you're seeing here in Jamaat Ahmadiyya USA and in other Western countries?
Yes, well, first of all, assalamu alaikum and welcome to the USA. Very happy to have you here, and it's a blessing for all of us. And this particular prophecy, I believe, is fulfilled not only in the group here, every single one sitting in this room who are born and raised in the West, they are a sign of that prophecy, because it's indicating that Islam, which started in the East, in Saudi Arabia, at one point was going to cross the entire planet and begin to convert people's hearts in the Western world, which was at one point the seat of Christianity. The dominance of the Christian cross was here in the West. And yet the prophecy is saying we're going to break that cross and begin to enter the hearts of people. And now we're seeing this in these kind of programs. And through MPA, which is sending the message around the world. So the prophecy is being fulfilled in many wonderful ways in this show itself.
Okay. Ahmad Nuruddin Sahib, turning to you. Firstly, I'd just like to ask you, can you describe for us your journey towards Islam and your own personal experiences?
Well, me personally, when I was a young boy, my parents and my grandparents would take us to church because that was their upbringing. They wanted to instill some faith in God and some spiritual teaching in us as well. So they would take us to church, and it was enjoyable for me because I like to hear something about God, to learn something about what He wanted for us to do in our lives. And so I would go and I would get some enjoyment out of that, but I never really absorbed the teaching of Christianity in my heart. It didn't sit well with me. Too many questions were unanswered. And so when I graduated from college, I said to myself, well, let me go investigate other religions, and particularly Islam, because in Philadelphia there's a lot of Muslims, young Muslims, and I wanted to go and see what it is they believed and how they practiced their religion. So I said, let me go to the source. So I picked up the Holy Quran and started reading that. And the word of the Quran just showed me that it was a living scripture, and it applied to me and my life directly. And so from there, I knew it was the truth, just reading a portion of the Quran. And then I needed to find somewhere to learn how to practice. So I prayed to God to guide me to the place where it's going to teach me how to practice this religion in the way that's going to please Him. And He guided me to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and the rest is history, as they say.
Okay, mashallah, fantastic to hear. Brother Rafiq, is that something you can relate to as well? What was your own?
Well, my journey was a little bit different. I started out really young, trying to find what I thought to be the proper way to worship God. And I was just 15 years old when I decided that I was going to join this group, the Nation of Islam, because, you know, for me being a African-American in Philadelphia at the time, there were not many men that were, you know, the images that they had of black men were not really good. And the working class guys and not too articulate and, you know, just those type of people. Well, the Nation of Islam came around. These guys were in suits and ties, and they were intelligent and articulate, and it was very impressive to me. And I said, wow, you know, what are they all about? So when I found out that they were Muslims, I had to find out what that was all about. So I, you know, started to read a little bit of their literature. They had newspapers that they would sell, and I would read a little bit of it. And then one day I was standing on a corner with my friends doing some things I shouldn't have been doing. And they came by in a van, and they told us to stop doing what we were doing. They said, get in the van and go to the temple with me. And you know, I started my journey there. And from there, you know, I joined that organization, but the organization's philosophy was not fitting with my character because my last name is Friend, and they were not so friendly. So, you know, they taught a lot of things that were counter my character. And so I kind of moved away from them, and then I tried to find another Islamic organization, but there was no one really around during that time period. And ultimately, I went back to Christianity, and then I jumped into Buddhism.
Okay.
And then I jumped back into Islam, but I jumped in with another group, which was a Sunni group. And ultimately, there was a friend in the neighborhood who, you know, his whole family kind of transformed. You know, they were, you know, living life like me. And then I saw him one day, and he was in Islamic garb, and his wife was in Islamic garb, and his children. And I'm like, wow, what's he doing? You know, as a matter of fact, I had taught him, and now he's advancing me. So I said, wow, you know, and I checked him out, and he told me that his uncle was the president of the local Ahmadiyya mosque. And he asked me, did I want to come? And I said, yeah, I'll check it out. But what impressed me was that the president, who's now, you know, passed on, Brother Munir Hamid Sahib, he picked me up. And I said, the president come to pick me up and take me to the mosque? This was impressive. So I went to the mosque, and of course they all greeted me well, and we sat down afterwards, and they gave me this book, The Philosophy and Teaching of Islam. Right. And I must have read maybe 20 pages, and I turned back and I said, who is this? You know, and that was the start of my journey to Ahmadiyya Islam.
Okay, it's really interesting to hear the fact that, you know, in your search for truth, you went down so many different avenues, and I think that's really important as well, because sometimes people they have such a very narrow mindset that they're not open to hear new things as well. Is that something that you're worried about generally? People are, you know, they're set in one sort of mindset. They don't want to hear anything else. They're not really open-minded.
Well, I think that's the challenge that, you know, even today, is that people are kind of fixed in their, you know, position, and they don't want to get outside of it. But, you know, of course, Islam being a universal religion and, you know, embraces all of life, then I think that that's a really important, you know, part of our, you know, mental development. And then as we immerse ourselves in it and we become that role model for, you know, those people that are in search of the same, you know, dynamics in life that we're in search of in terms of morality and values and things of that nature. So I think, you know, it is very challenging for people to get stuck in their theology. I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah, please.
I was recently invited to participate in a HIV/AIDS awareness campaign in Philadelphia because it's a real problem in Philadelphia. It's an epidemic in the African American community. So I was invited by the mayor's executive director for Faith-Based Initiative, and she, this was black clergy she wanted to get the word out to, because that's where our highest concentrations of black people are at, in churches. But she said to me, because I have a relationship with her, she says, listen, we need the Muslims to get involved with this as well. So I said, okay. So I got a few Muslims, and we went and we participated, and then we were in this breakout sessions. And I was sitting in a room with this man who was he's a pastor of a church of 10,000. I heard about him, but I never met him formally, and he was really talking, very articulate, very intelligent man. And then he said to me, he says, listen, I'm having a problem working with the Muslims. Even though he hadn't done anything, he says, I'm theologically stuck in my position. I couldn't even relate to the brother's prayer. And I did an opening prayer, and it was just Surah Fatiha. And I said in Arabic and English, very nice and slowly. And I explained to him that at one time I was stuck in his theological space, but I had gone to Israel. I went with a group of interfaith people, and while I was there, I told him, I said, I visited the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, you know, the Prison of Christ, the Garden of Gethsemane, the Sea of Galilee, that I made wudu in. And, you know, I said, I embrace all your traditions, but I said, even though I stepped into that water and I made the wudu, when I finished with all of that, I was still a Muslim.
Right, right.
So I could appreciate where he was stuck at, but I was hoping that he could unstuck and we could work together in terms of this AIDS epidemic. And just recently, he and I did a radio program on National Public Radio and in regard to this particular subject, okay. So he's relaxed.
Fantastic. Ahmed Saab, I just want to bring you back into the discussion. Was there one particular aspect of Islam that really stuck out for you and really attracted you?
Well, there were several things, but firstly, the message of the Holy Quran. You know, as I said at the beginning, what would happen is, as I read the Holy Quran, I would then reflect on its verses, think about how does it apply to me and my life experiences. And what would happen is then I would go out into the community and see the exact same scenarios playing out. Right, right. And I would think about it and say, wow, I just read about that in the Quran, you know? And then also it'd be a situation if I had a problem in my life, I would read the Quran and eventually, in a very short amount of time, I would come to something that addressed that problem directly. So it was like, this scripture is like a living thing. It's like it has eyes and ears to know what's going on in my life, you know? Right, right, right. So that was the main thing, was the teaching of the Quran. And secondly, I used to listen to a lot of the speeches and question and answer sessions of Khalifatul Masih IV. And the wisdom and the knowledge which he came with was so profound that I said, well, whatever he's associated with, that's what I need to be associated with. And it was also a great source of my initial training and to this Jamaat to understand exactly what the base philosophy is.
That's right. I mean, Khilafat has a huge role to play within Ahmadiyyat, and we'll touch upon that later on in the program. I want to get some of the audience's views on this. We've been talking about, I mean, that's a fantastic point you made about how relevant the Quran is to this day. Some people attack Islam and say that, you know, it's a religion of 1400 years ago. It's got no relevance today. It's based in the medieval ages. Do you think Islam is something that can actually inspire people even today and they can make it a part of their lives? What would you like to say to that?
Okay, I think Islam can, and it depends on how you look at it, right. Because it depends what's inside of you. I think when you are looking for something, when you're happy, I think when you need happiness, when you need like that satisfaction of life, I think Islam provides that in different type of ways. I think having that friend in need, like what he said, the Holy Quran had every aspect of his life mentioned and it helped him. I think having that friend in God, finding a friend in God, I think Islam provides that. And I think that's where it's
all right, fantastic. Today. Let's get 2 or 3 more points of view. What is the role of Islam in today's world? Or is it something, you know, people just see it as a backward religion? But what Brother Ahmed said is that, you know, it actually has, you know, some relevance today as well, yes?
Yeah, your question about the relevance of Islam in today's society. If you look at the American society today, despite all of its technological advancements, we see that the social ills that we see around us are really no different than the social ills that existed in pre-Islamic Arabia. And those are the things that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, came and remedied. The treatment of women in our society, no matter how much we claim that you know, the American society has advanced and the women's suffrage movement and all of these things, even in the newspaper, we open up the newspaper every day and we hear all these horrendous stories. The substance and alcohol abuse that exists in this society, all of these things are basically the same stories that we read in pre-Islamic Arabian society. And these were the ills that the Holy Prophet and the message of the Quran came and remedied within a very short period of time.
That's right, there was a huge spiritual revolution at that point. Moving back to the panel, I read an article the other day about the rising trend of people converting to Islam, especially in the West. And you know, the West seems to be the champion of freedom. And the author of this article was arguing that perhaps that freedom had gone too far. and everyone was free to do whatever they wanted. And actually people were converting to Islam because it gives you that, you know, regulation, it gives you that structure, and it gives you those life guidelines for you to work with. I mean, we're talking about respect of family, of elders, the structure in terms of having your 5 daily prayers and how that helps as well. I would like to hear the panel's viewpoint on that. Azhar and Yusuf, what would you like to say on that?
Well, I think that, number one, when the message of Islam reached America, it's quite interesting. The first challenge that we faced as an Ahmadiyya Jamaat, I mean, our Jamaat reached in 1920 under the auspice of missionary Mufti Muhammad Sadiq Sahib.
That's right.
The story goes that when he reached here, the authorities wouldn't allow him in the country because he was practicing a religion that went against the laws of the country.
Right.
And that was that we can marry more than one wife. So everyone's out here smiling, that's a great law, you know, but hey, the point he was making is Islam doesn't demand this. Islam is like making this a obligation. It's making a concession based on certain circumstances, so we can, in fact, mold ourselves as Muslims to societies, which shows the flexibility of our faith. But at the same time, as you say, it establishes standards and principles and moral order, which everyone respects. Whether you're Jewish, you're Christian, you're Buddhist, you're Hindu, everyone respects ethics and moral order. And we've seen over the course of time that all religions have kind of shifted away from their moral center, so to speak, their core values.
Yeah.
Islam always stands for what we believe as those basic core values. So when people are looking at, I lost it in my church or my temple, they find it again in Islam and they embrace it. And the same beliefs, the same, you know, you could say values that we have in American society are the basic values of Islam. So there's a harmony there.
All right. Ahmed Saab, going back, I mean, we're focusing on converts and conversion here today. When you converted, I would really like to know, what was the reaction from your family and from family members, and how did they feel to you?
I'll tell you, I was very lucky because my family members are very open-minded, and they were interested in seeing me happy.
Right.
And they understood that this calling of Islam and spirituality was giving me happiness and joy, and it was allowing me to develop, and I'm sure they saw some changes in me for the better, and they were very supportive of that. So I was very lucky in that.
Okay, fantastic. Brother Rafiq, how would you like to respond to that?
Opposite reaction.
Okay.
My mom told me I was crazy.
Right.
She said, "Don't Muslims done brainwashed you?" And I said, "Yes, mother, you're right. They did brainwash me. I needed my brain washed, all that stuff."
That's a good way of looking at it. I like that.
And they washed it out. That's right. But it was very challenging for me because I come from a pretty big family, and all the traditions. I was just 15 years old, and Christmas and New Year's and Easter, all those days were important to me and my family because we all celebrated together. And now I'm the outsider.
Right.
I'm the guy that's, I'm not eating pork no more. Oh gosh, that was horrible. You don't eat pork anymore. Then my friends, some of the things we were doing, like, I can't hang out with you no more because I gotta, pray and I gotta read and I gotta be this example. I gotta live my life in a way that's in accordance to the faith. And it was a real challenge for me in the beginning, but through time, and love, my mom now owns a Quran, so it was certainly a journey for me, one worth taking, but different than Ahmed's.
Okay, fantastic. Azhar and Yusuf, just bringing you in. Just to clarify, you're not a new convert. You were born into the faith, but as Naib Amir, I mean, I'm sure you speak to a lot of people who have converted, and from people I've spoken to as well. The reactions from family members, like Brother Rafiq said, can be quite harsh sometimes. And how do they deal with that? What advice can you give to them?
Well, I give them my own personal example. No, I'm not a convert. Many here sitting are not converts as such. Signing bayat in our lifetime. But my parents signed the bayat. They were very young, so I'm born into Ahmadiyya. But where else am I born? I'm born into the USA.
Right.
And all the values, all the society that puts in front of me a certain type of lifestyle you aim for, which is not in every case religious. So the friends, you're going back 30, 40 years, I know I'm dating myself with it, but nonetheless, if I go back to that point, there was a society that was much different than it is today.
Okay.
And so what I say is, I'm like those Christians who say we're born again. I had to reconvert myself in my early years of life to the faith of my parents. And every single one in the West has to do it because we're free.
Yeah, that's right.
Our parents cannot define us. They can only guide us by being an example, but as we grow older, every single one who comes from the West, born here, you have to recommit yourself as you come of age, or else you drift away. You just nominally something. And there's nominal Christians, Jews, Hindus out there. They can be nominal Ahmadis unless they recommit themselves, or in a sense, study it and make a bias. So in college, I had to study Ahmadiyya. And it reminds me, the Caliphs do the same thing. I read the books of the fourth Caliph. He talked about his own journey searching for God. He said, you know, it's not enough I'm being the son of something. I want to find God myself so I can commit to myself, to God myself. And the same thing I had to go through in life. So this is what I share with people, that don't think that you're struggling on your own. It's a unique struggle. Everyone goes through this, even God's holy elect.
I mean, that's a great opportunity to bring in the audience as well. For those of us who are born Ahmadis as well, don't you think that there comes a time where you have to make that decision yourself? You have to, you know, prioritize. Everyone, I think, comes to that point where you can either go down this route or you can go down that route. And you know, is that something that all of you have faced? Or let's get some points.
So I share that experience with Elder Saab, is the fact that there came a point in my life that you have to make that decision, where you really want the answer. You're searching for God. Is He out there? And you question the existence of God and the answer you receive from Allah Ta'ala. And I think many of us here in the audience probably had a similar experience. You know, my experience ended up happening with Khalifatul Masih Rabi, rahmatullah. And, you know, I think from my peer group, from my friends, I've heard similar experience, either with the Khalifa or through, even if you're a born Ahmadi, through asking that question, really not just taking it for granted, but asking that question, and the answer lies with Allah. So, and it is as if you came into the fold of Ahmadiyyat when you got the answer from Allah Ta'ala.
Okay, fantastic. I want to get there's some guys in the back. I want to make sure they can add in their points of view as well.
I agree with the comments that were just made. I was born Ahmadi Muslim, but it came a time in my life where I almost felt bad sort of questioning the religion that I was a part of, that I was raised in. But what always made me feel sound with my religion and what my parents raised me with was the fact that any time that I had a question about Islam, about Ahmadiyyat, there was always a rational answer, and I found it, you know, various sources, whether it's books or you know, from Khalifa Rabi, as you know, the examples, the previous examples were given, and the fact that there was always an answer that made complete sense to me gave me, you know, the peace of mind that I was doing the right thing, I was in the right place, I was a part of the right organization, and allowed me to devote myself fully towards that.
Okay, fantastic. There's some guys at the back. I just want to get some points of view from them.
I think there's definitely a point where you get to recommit yourself. I personally, at one point, looked at different things, looking for different answers. But again, it's a fork in the road, and you definitely have to recommit yourself to say, this is what I want to do. Before that, it's just you're going through the motions. You know, you may have to force yourself to do the prayers, etc. But at one point, you have to say, this is what I'm doing, this is who I am, and from here out, that's what I'm going to be doing, you know, for the rest of my life.
Okay, fantastic. Someone from this side as well. How would you respond to this?
One of the things I wanted to say is that if we were in a purely Muslim environment, I don't think we would necessarily go through the struggles. So just being here as born Ahmadis, I think it puts us in that situation where you're either going to stand up and voice your opinion, and in order to do that, you have to go through all the trials and you have to find what you're looking for. And then another thing is that, you know, life throws these events at you. Sometimes they're controlled by you, most of the time they're not. And then you have to respond a certain way, and I think that's also what brings the best out of us. For myself, having had children was probably one of the most important things that actually brought me back, is that what am I gonna, what kind of life are they gonna live in this society? Am I teaching them what is important, what is necessary? So in order to do that, I had to basically revitalize myself, and so I can, you know, teach them.
Okay.
So I think it's the events of life.
Okay, fantastic. We had a question earlier on. I just want to come back to that. Just briefly, we've only got a minute or two left on this half.
Sure. My question is to one of the convert brothers, not the lucky one, but the unlucky brother, Brother Rafiq. You said you had lots of opposition from your family, and I think that's very common, particularly in this American society, with that the with that Islamophobia being so integrated into the society, is there a possibility that you can serve as a bridge between your newly joined group and the group you have spent your life before? I mean, how could you become a bridge to serve that as a connection between those two groups you have in your life?
Father Freak, just very briefly, we're short on
very,
time.
very briefly with a long response, but yeah, I mean, it's my ultimate goal is to be that bridge, and I think by me just living and changing, because I was like them, and now I'm different, They see me as a more prayerful person. They see me as a person more concerned with, other people. They see me respond to them even better, So, with my children, the relationship I have with my wife, they see all these things. So I think that the best way to bridge it is to live it so that they can see the change, because this is a religion of change. And if you change within it, I mean, you come into it, you're living one way, and then you come through it, and then you've changed, and it's for the better, then I think that's what gives them the motivation to want to change. Now, just before I came down here, my cousin said to me, I had delivered 2 Qurans. I had delivered one to the mayor's executive director for faith-based initiatives, who was a Christian woman, but she asked me, from this relationship that I've built over time, last 5 months, she asked me one day, she says, can I have a Quran? Right. And I said, certainly. Right before I came here, I took her the Quran, and I explained to her briefly, and then I went to my mom and dad's house to get something from my mom. And while I was there, my cousin said to me, and he's a Christian guy, he's with the Bible, he said, hey, Uncle Rafiq, I need you to get me a Quran and teach me this Islam. So, I mean, just by living the life, it'll definitely, attract your family.
Okay. Fantastic. We'll have to leave it there, but stay with us. For part 2, we're going to be having a look at this. We're having a look at the role of Tabligh as well. How do we actually convey that message so more people, like we've heard here, can actually convert and find the real Islam, which is Ahmadiyyat. We're going to be back after a few minutes, so don't go away. We'll be back after this short break.